everybody here that's an actor knows that, you live truthfully in these, so-called imaginary circumstances. And Alex and Kelly were really terrific at giving everybody in the film a wide berth for them to find stuff, and didn't feel rushed at any time, when sometimes it can on other sets. Again, it's just, I'm a parent, and I know that you do as little as possible for the camera, because it's a microscope and it'll catch whatever if you're thinking. I remember Marlon Brando said, if you're thinking the right thing, then you'll be fine. If you're thinking the wrong thing, the camera's going to call you out as a phony. So you have to keep thinking the right thing, and that's hopefully what I did.
There's a lot to get to. Kelly, let's just talk about from the beginning. What was the impetus for the screenplay, and what made you want to put your fingers to the typewriter, or keyboard in this case, to tell the story?
So I started writing this in March 2021, and I'm a Chicago stage actor, and I was very much missing my community, the people that I find, I don't play sports, but I've always thought of theater as my team. And so I was feeling lonely and isolated, and the National Theatre of London had put out a trailer for their production of Romeo and Juliet, and I watched that, and I found myself crying at the end of it, which I don't typically cry at a lot of things, but I was like, I think I must be having a hard time, and I think I must be, missing my tribe. And so it started from there, and then also I was studying the hero's journey and started to think of a very unlikely hero who's been sort of socialized to think that any emotion other than anger is considered weakness, even joy, that joy is considered weakness and sorrow is considered weakness, and a character who could really benefit from a safe space for expression. And so those things kind of swirled around in my brain, and this story came out.
Yeah, and just to kind of give a little bit of backstory as well, you guys had another film set up that you were going to do, because one of the things about this film is it looks so polished and beautiful, but it was also done in some ways on a run-and-gun style, because you guys put it together end of 2023 when something fell through for another project, and you just called everybody that was going to be involved in that to this one, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to do a different movie with a much higher budget, and then the strikes happened, and so we pivoted and put this together in a matter of months.
Yeah. Alex, let's kind of talk on that, about how the kind of almost the run and gun style really benefited the film.
Well,
we boring you, Keith? Did you just yawn?
Can you tell the whole class what
I was yawning at?
He's like, your line, my line.
Blah, blah, blah. 12 hours a day I had to talk to these fools. No, we got along actually really, really well. Not a lot of off-stage drama until today. Yeah, I mean, luckily the run and gun nature was in prep. So we had about 2 months to raise the budget and about 10 days of formal prep. Though Chicago is our hometown, so it's very easy off the clock to go and visit, elementary schools or theaters. And we, our production designer was an architect literally weeks before she came onto this project. Never been on a film set before. And so she was newly unemployed and was like, yeah, I'll go up to Waukegan and visit some places and take some pictures. And yeah, but the production itself was very luxurious. I mean, we moved very quickly, but we had 25 days and
ended up being 26 because we forgot a scene. We completely wrapped. We had the wrap party, everybody said goodbye. And at the wrap party is, I think, when we had just found out we had to come back the next day. And so everybody was like, see you tomorrow.
It's actually pretty unbelievable. We told the elementary, I think this is true. I've said this story before, and it feels like a lie, but I know this is what happened. We told the elementary school that we had left something in the theater gym, and could we come back and look for it? And then we just came in the side door and loaded everything in and shot a whole scene.
I kept saying, do you remember I kept saying as we were getting close to wrapping, I think we should extend.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you were like, guess what?
We're
extending.
Which brings us then to Keith. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Kupferer, whose performance in this film anchors it and is so beautiful. and so powerful. Kelly, you had worked with Keith previously, and so you wrote it with Keith in mind. Let's kind of talk about that, and then we'll jump into Keith's point of view on what it was like to read the script and understand the character.
Yeah, Keith and I had done the play The Humans. We had originated it in Chicago 10 years previous to this, and he had played my dad in that. And so I got to see, on stage every night, what an incredible actor. I'm always like, God, he's heard this so many times. But you are. So, but I got to see how amazing he was. And so when I was thinking of this character who really it's almost an impossible lift that Keith had to do, because he has to be a believable construction worker who then is a bad actor in the beginning, who by the end is doing Shakespeare brilliantly, and who carries like a 7-minute deposition monologue that has this incredible emotional arc of its own, and he has to be funny and you have to love. So when I was thinking of this character, it was really only Keith. And then Alex and I, we even played the game of who else could do it. And luckily everybody else came up short.
Can I just say that you describing the movie and Keith's performance, I love that Kelly's scripts are like, when you hear them, you're like, well, that if it wasn't so very, very good, it could be very, very bad. Yeah. I think it's amazing. Keith, sorry, I think that's very funny.
This is what it's like to collaborate with him. He's like, it has to be good or it's going to be really bad.
Didn't you guys, at one point, wasn't your idea sort of like, it's like Waiting for Guffman meets Manchester by the Sea was sort of your
That was
idea?
I didn't start telling people that until the script was written, because nobody would have accepted that. Right. Everybody would have been like, don't spend your time writing that.
Right.
But yeah, I think they are sort of like, this is the result of them having a baby.
And Keith, what did you think about the script when Kelly talked to you about it, showed it to you, and you kind of figured out the kind of the nuts and bolts in some ways of who Dan was? What was that like?
I the first time I saw it was at a table read, and after we were done, I emailed you guys, I think, and I said, look, this is really a terrific script, and I don't know if you're holding auditions, but I would like to audition for Dan. And Kelly said, well, I wrote it for you, so there's no need to audition. If you want it, you can do it. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. As far as when I first read it, it was really very moving. I mean, as an actor with a child, it's not hard to be, triggered, I don't like that word, but moved by the loss of a child and the grief and the how I probably myself would not survive. I'd be driven crazy. But so that was the emotional foundation. And after we read the deposition scene, I thought, oh, this is, I really want to do this, because that scene it had a lot of different levels, and the characters, and he starts at this level or this point, and by the end of the depositions, he's at a different point. He's screwed his lawsuit, and his wife is extremely angry with him, but he's found some sort of the beginning of a peace in his mind.
Yeah. In fact, the beauty of that scene, Keith, is you really sort of see Dan transform in that 7 minutes. It never feels telegraphed. You never sort of feel as if each turn is too far one way or the other. It's a beautiful progression. But you bring up an interesting point, which is when you say it's hard for a parent to kind of imagine that thing. The scene when you are asked to imagine during the rehearsal as if that's your child, and you do so much so silently. There's a room full of actors. I would love to hear kind of that sort of level of bringing out emotion by doing so little, and yet still making those glimmers of emotion and depth in your eyes and in your performance resonate in those quiet moments.
Well, I think it was just, again, everybody here that's an actor knows that, you live truthfully in these, so-called imaginary circumstances. And Alex and Kelly were really terrific at giving everybody in the film a wide berth for them to find stuff, and didn't feel rushed at any time, when sometimes can on other sets. So again, it's just I'm a parent, and I know that you do as little as possible for the camera because it's a microscope and it'll catch whatever you. If you're thinking, I remember Marlon Brando said, if you're thinking the right thing, then you'll be fine. If you're thinking the wrong thing, the camera's going to call you out as a phony. So you have to keep thinking the right thing, and that's hopefully what I did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yes. And Tara, you had worked with Kelly as well a couple of years ago. Let's talk about what you thought of Sharon as a character and kind of figuring out, Tara, the kind of the arc that she has to go throughout the story.
So I actually hadn't. I mean, Kelly had come and done a workshop at my theater company in Chicago, and I had been very impressed with her playing an astronaut.
Yeah.
She brought in a leather hat and did a really cool thing where she was taking off. But we hadn't, and I had never met Alex until I was cast until we were getting props in my garage. But like Keith, I read the script. I read the script 2 weeks before we began shooting when they came to borrow some props from my theater company and offered me the role in the garage. And I was like, oh, and Kelly said, well, you read it. Did Keith show you the script? And I said, no. And she said, do you want to read it? And I was like, yeah. And I read it that night and I fell in love with it. I couldn't believe how much it fit on our family. It felt like it just fit on us so beautifully. And there was so much opportunity for myself and Keith and Katherine to bring our whole selves and our relationship to the party in a really organic, unique way that I have certainly never had the opportunity to do before in a play or in a film or in anything. So that was really wonderful. I think the difference for me in approaching the character was just learning how to keep Sharon's emotional life in check and buried, and not letting that tension go away, but keeping it right here, and also allowing her to take a step back and sort of watch and be behind them in a way.
Yeah. And you've spoken before with us and with other people about how one of the systems that you and Keith do as actors, and you're the artistic director and founder of the Rivendell Theater Company in Chicago, where you work with each other about figuring out the moment before, like what's in terms of both the film and the scene that you're working on. Talk to us about that, because I think that's a really fascinating exploration of character. Out the moment
so
before.
we're really careful to not over talk stuff when we're working on things together, because we want there, of course, to be opportunities for us to surprise each other. Keith's been my favorite scene partner for about 35 years now. We met doing a play, and we moved from New York to Chicago and started that theater company there, and we've been on stage many, many times in many, many productions. So we have an incredible trust between us. And while we don't necessarily dissect what we're going to do or tell each other what we're going to try, we do spend a lot of time talking about what's just happened and what's the entry point into the moment we're about to do and what's just happened. And certainly we had a fair amount of discourse between us before filming started about what happened with our son and how that was something we needed to keep hold of throughout the whole film. Although because we shot out of sequence and we were working on one scene a day, there were times that Kelly and Alex had to really, and they're so generous and wonderful, there was one moment in particular when we were watching Katherine vape and curse that, and it was very funny for Keith and I to watch that. And Kelly was like, you remember, things aren't good. Remember that things aren't good between you.
And we stopped laughing.
I meant you're acting at this point. I said, this isn't good. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
And Katherine, you came to the table in some ways from a conversation you had with your dad when he was describing the story to you and talking about Kelly's script. Talk to us about what that moment was like, because he was describing Dan and his family, right? And you had a moment of realization.
Yeah. So, yeah. Basically, when my dad had, you're just asking how I got involved, right? Okay. So basically, my dad had said a little bit about, I might be doing this movie, blah blah blah, and then he was like, there's actually a role for a 15, 16-year-old girl, and I was like, oh, isn't that just a coincidence, I guess? And so then I asked him like multiple times to send an email, and then he finally did.
I didn't know this part.
Yes, multiple times. And my dad, he does this often. He'd like, I have to ask him multiple times sometimes. And then he did, and then I did a reading of it, and I actually thought I did such a bad job. But I guess I didn't.
You definitely didn't. And in fact, because him saying, and this guy's got a 15-year-old daughter, and you're like, yeah, you have a 15-year-old daughter as well. I love the dynamic of that. I also just want to point out that the film was not constructed to have an actual family portray a fictional family on screen. Like that all, like everybody kind of came to it through their own ways, right?
Yeah. No, I still cannot believe it worked out like this. And I really, I'm agnostic. I don't know, but I do think like there is a little bit of magic in the way that this all came together, and I can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah. Well,
Spirits, ghosts, helping.
We were just talking about it.
Aliens.
I'm scared of them.
yes. Well, it makes it feel like a Cassavetes film for a new generation, which is really sort of a beautiful thing and really so powerful. Keith and Tara, I want to ask you about kind of something related to that, in the sense that you both sort of said it was a great opportunity to bring some dynamics of your family to it. I actually want to reverse that and ask, were there moments when, as you were either in rehearsal or discussing it, that you sort of said, oh, wait, we're doing this like we would do as a family. This is not how the Muellers would do it. Let's reverse it a little bit. Were there moments where you almost had to sort of take yourselves out of it and say, let's put those things to the side because this family's different? Yeah.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I mean, I think Kelly and Alex were really encouraging us to do the opposite.
Okay.
From the go, they were really encouraging us to bring our family to set and bring ourselves authentically to work every day. And it was really fun. It was really fun and freeing. Like we had a lot of freedom to be ourselves and be really truthful. I mean, certainly there's elements of Sharon and there's elements of Daisy, right, that are not necessarily Katherine and not necessarily Tara. But I would say the casting director in Chicago who cast this is a very good friend of ours and a very good friend of Kelly and Alex's. And she said, she called me before the readings and before it got cast, and she's like, I just told Kelly and Alex I didn't just write a film for Keith. They wrote a film for Keith, Tara, and Katherine, and they're just going to have to cast you guys because that's what they did. So I do think...
She doesn't sound anything like that. Close enough.
She's also the police captain.
That's right.
Small town.
That's right.
Small town.
And that's Mickey
Casting
Pascal, the casting director.
Yeah, Mickey Pascal. But we really do like to encourage people to just play. Like I'm thinking specifically about, so Tara, when you're like coaching the kids on that song in the very beginning, that's not in the script. Tara just like took control of those kids, helped them rehearse the song like when cameras weren't rolling, and just like took it on herself to be this teacher, and then we just turned the camera on her. Like little moments like that I think are because people are willing to bring themselves and take risks and be playful, and we really like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think something that you talk about a lot, Kelly, which I agree with, is that that's kind of what you want out of any actor. Yeah. You want them to be able to feel, I shouldn't say be able to, feel comfortable bringing themselves to a role. Because that's just, it enriches the part as it's written. Yeah. I think what's cool about, I don't think Tara is as passive as Sharon. I think Tara would find the active moment a lot sooner than Sharon does. Mm-hmm. But because Tara is playing the role, that possibility is right there under the surface, like the whole time. And so even things that feel sedate are active. And I think that's just such a gift.
There was a really specific moment in the script where I came in to the rehearsal room and for the first time, and I met Dolly, I met Rita, and in the script it said very clearly that I had to hug her. And I was like, I don't think Sharon would do it. I don't think Sharon would do it because I don't think Tara would do it. And I was like, Kelly, I don't think Sharon would do this. And Kelly was like, I think she would. And then I did it, and it felt so right. And I think it's so right in the film. And I have to credit our brilliant directors in giving us these very gentle and very clear direction that helped us find those moments where we were not playing ourselves and really playing the character.
I promise I'm going to stop talking about the Sharon character in a second. Okay. But something like, as a female writer, I was like so worried about the Sharon character because I was so worried that she was going to be perceived as a passive wife.
I'm sorry I used the word passive.
I know, now I have to defend it. But the thing that I love about it is like she is doing the hardest work of all, which is keeping the family together. Everybody around her is exploding. And so I love in your performance that you see her, it takes so much muscle to contain all of that and to in a certain moment decide like, yeah, I think if it's for school, she can go, because that's not passive. That's like, okay, motherfucker, let's see what you do when your daughter goes with you. You know, that Sharon, and I think that's a beautiful thing that you brought to the role is I see Sharon's muscle all the time of like, it may look passive to an outsider, but actually it's the unnoticed labor that a lot of women do, which is everybody around me is freaking out. I'm going to like steer this ship so nothing falls apart. Yeah.
And Tara, of course, gave us a great segue to the other core member of this amazing ensemble. Let's have a round of applause for Dolly De Leon, who is not here, but of course here in spirit. And such a phenomenal performance as Rita. Kelly and Alex, let's talk about bringing Dolly into the mix and what that was like and how she came aboard.
We share a manager.
Oh, well, there you go.
So we had seen her in Triangle of Sadness and just adored her. And then Adam Kirsch, we call his little fiefdom the Kirschiverse. I forget who came up with that, but
Maybe Adam.
Maybe Adam.
You're here.
But he's a wonderful. He has a very good matchmaking sense when it comes to creative projects, and so he was a route to Dolly, and he recommended her, and we loved her so much.
Alex, yeah. And in terms of her contributions are just innumerable, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Dolly is a trained theater actor and has a relationship to Shakespeare and was very, very game to come and play in the way that we did, with no hair and makeup, with very unusual costuming practices. I actually don't know where all those graphic tees came from. Everybody else brought their own wardrobe, but somehow Dolly...
They came from Goodwill.
Yeah.
We went and we got them, and so did Michelle, our wardrobe supervisor. I still have the Jaws shirt.
Yeah, the Jaws shirt. The Cookie Monster one is great. But no, Dolly just brought an incredible amount of kindness, and I think... I don't know. She's just a really, really generous actor. Mm-hmm. So she watching Dolly work with you all was just, it was so fun. There's an element of the unexpected with this whole cast that I think was really exciting to watch.
Yeah. And Keith, let's talk about working with Dolly, because I know you guys kind of didn't talk about it much. You kind of wanted to find your own rhythm. You didn't kind of talk about the way the characters would interact as much. But what was it like working with Dolly and figuring that out instinctively?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the same approach that I imagine a lot of actors take, is that, you have a scene to do, and you just kind of look at the work ahead of you and you do it. And then maybe after a couple of takes, you talk about it a little bit and make a few adjustments with the directors and the writer, and then you do it again. She was extremely... open and present and gave as good as she got, and that's what you hope for in the scene partner. And I thought that she was going to be sort of aloof, and because of her status, but she wasn't. She was the opposite of that, and she's maybe a little shy, but once you started talking to her, she was very funny and a terrific professional and a great talent.
Yeah, the energy the two of you have is so different, and yet so perfectly matched in so many ways. I think that obviously what she brings is one thing, and what you bring is another, and somewhere in the middle there is where that magic is, which I think is so great.
Yeah, like when the scene where Romeo and Juliet get married, and they're silhouetted against the silk. It's like every time I see it, I said, Shrek gets married. And it's like, well, this is absurd. I mean, this is Romeo and Juliet. Romeo.
I will say, because of your height difference, we did have to pull back further than I expected.
Yeah, you're going to see it. Right. He's marrying the top of a head. I don't see what the hell's going on over there. But yeah.
Katherine, I want to ask you about because the relationship to grief and to mourning that the Mueller family has in the film is really interesting, because you all sort of are dealing with it in different ways. And one of the ways I think that Daisy is dealing with it is really sort of it's true to being a teenager. Let's kind of figure out how Daisy related to Brian. Was that an aspect of the character that you really wanted to try and figure out, because you kind of had to go in kind of knowing what that relationship had been like with her brother, right?
When I started going into it, like, I'm an only child and stuff, so I don't have, a brother. But obviously, Brian is a big part of Daisy, and I decided that she really looked up to him, and that's why, and I think that not only did that affect how badly she felt when he killed himself, but I think it also affects the way that she feels to Christine, his girlfriend. Yeah. And I think that in a way that, my dad forgives her, I felt that Daisy, I don't think she really did forgive her. Yeah. Because I think not only, and this is something that I just kind of thought about, was, not only did she physically take him away from her, but I thought maybe leading up to the death of her brother that, he had started to get really close to her, which you hear about during the deposition scene, and getting really obsessed. And that probably meant spending less time with Daisy and more time with Christine. And I think that, that's something that Daisy blamed Christine for, was their relationship getting, not as intense, and and then when he died, she ultimately definitely, I think, because how close she was and how much she looked up to him, I think that she definitely, so I think that affected the way that I played it when I saw Christine and in the deposition scene, and stuff like that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, absolutely.
Just something that I think is really cool, the little picture that Daisy has of Brian is one of our interns, Rob Ludke, who's amazing. Yes. And I think, Katherine, you guys became buddies.
Oh, yeah, we became really close.
And so actually shooting those pictures was like sort of an assignment, one day. And I just remember you guys had so much fun.
Yeah, we did.
And it's always more it's moving to me to watch the film, and that scene really moves me because I kind of think of him as a character in our lives.
Right.
I do too. I think of him as Brian.
Yeah.
When I see Rob, when I see him, when he comes to see stuff, and you're like, oh, there's Brian.
Yeah.
Not a SAG actor. He did not make it on any Exhibit Gs.
Careful.
But just you're mentioning the visuals kind of brings up another point, though, because the visuals of this film are so beautiful. I'd love to talk with the two of you about working with your DP, Luke Dyra, who really brings this sort of sense of the film feels both warm and yet also sort of off the cuff in a lot of ways. I know you guys wanted to hold off on using close-ups a lot or a moving camera for various kind of emotional reasons. Let's kind of talk about the visuals of the film and what you guys saw in it as a scheme.
Yeah, we decided on a couple of Alex. I mean, I learn a lot from Alex because he went to film school and I didn't, and he understands lenses and I don't. And Alex said this thing where he's like, we just have to make a few visual choices and then stick to them for the film to be unified, which I think is so smart. And so something that we clung to was in Dan's life before he enters the theater, everything is pretty static. Like at home, things are still. It's on, rather than a handheld camera that has life to it and some chaos, everything is stuck because he's very stuck. And then as soon as he starts to enter the theater world, we said any time that there's emotion, whether it's positive or negative, that Dan can't control, that it's handheld and it starts to have that sort of chaos to it. And we wanted very much, I mean, this was in the sound design too, that we wanted Dan's outside life with the cacophony of the construction noise, everything to be very harsh. And then as soon as he enters the theater, for it to be a cocoon in the way that it feels soft and warm and quiet.
Yeah, we were really going for a vibrancy. I think not oversaturated, not desaturated. I think a lot of films today, for the sake of style, are kind of desaturated or a little muddy, and we wanted it to feel vibrant because we knew that everything that is in the play at the end, all those colors and all those expressions, they're actually there the whole time. They're all around us, right? But Dan is just not able to access them. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to see them. And I'd always read about Sidney Lumet finding in Long Day's Journey a lens for every actor, and I thought that was sort of ridiculous, though it works in that film. But we sort of did that in this film as well. We discovered a lens that just felt right for Katherine because Katherine is a very volatile, physical performer and would, sort of had this forwards and back thing. And we found a different lens for Keith and for Tara, and we tried to group people and isolate Dan in certain ways so that when he was kind of coming into his own, we were opening up as well. We were letting people in.
And a visual choice that is not based on cinematography is we choose not to have hair and makeup on set. We want everybody to look real and like themselves. And like when they wake up, they're actually waking up and haven't spent an hour in hair and makeup. And so that's a visual choice that is very important to us.
Yeah, and that's not to discount the role of, there are hair and makeup artists who can do that. But again, those are hair and makeup artists. They require that time because naturalism is hard. Yeah. It's hard for us to do with the camera. It's hard for the actors to do. It takes time and trust and energy. And it's just something we've lived without for a while, and it's quite liberating.
Yeah, and in fact, even Katherine's first scene may not have been the first scene that she shot, but the first scene that we meet Daisy in, it's a 3-shot. It's almost consistently that 3-shot on the family, right? So we're able to kind of absorb everybody's reaction to Katherine's very physical, sort of very funny and very confrontational moment there in the school administrator's office, right? Yeah, which I think is amazing. Let's also talk about the film as a love letter to the theater. Obviously, your background in theater, Kelly, and the whole family's background in theater. But the Rube Mechanicals, Rita's whole team, are all this amazing all-stars of Chicago theater, right? Let's kind of talk about working with them and Tara and Keith kind of chiming in as much as you like about working with this amazing sort of team of Chicago actors.
How was it, Katherine, working with Deanna Dunnigan in the bathroom?
Oh. Yeah, it was fun. No, I did like it because, I pretty much grew up in the Chicago theater, so, a bunch of those people were people that I already knew. Yeah, I think most of them I knew. Hannah, the woman who plays the director, we're really, really close with her. And so it was kind of just, because we only filmed for a month, but we were on set every single day and during the ensemble, it was with all these people that we already knew, and we were all one big, family and stuff like that, and I thought that was really fun. And because I think on this set, it had we were such a good community, I feel like, and that was established by Alex and Kelly, I think, and, well, actually, I know, and so, it was the theater community in a way, because we all showed up and we were all ready to do this, and it wasn't like we were there, to get paid. It was we were there to create the movie, and we just wanted to do it.
I didn't get to be in any of the ensemble scenes, but I had to be there because I was a guardian of Katherine, and I would sit with the camera guys and stuff like that. And are you giving me stink eye from over there? but it was Kelly and Alex would, but Kelly led all of those games, and you guys know those are all games that we've all played. And I would sit there with the crew, and everyone was like, I want to go play those games, and you would just play the games and then start rolling the camera, right? And they were having so much fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah. And the Chicago-ness of it, too, is also so essential, right? And Kelly and Alex, we can talk about that. And Keith, I'd like to hear your viewpoint on it as well, because Chicago actors have there's something to the Chicago. It's legendary in a lot of ways. And Keith's work with Steppenwolf, obviously, and Goodman Theater and all of that, it's all part and parcel of like making this film feel so organic and real, right?
Yeah. Well, and Chicago is very much ensemble based. Like I would say that's the word that sort of defines Chicago acting, is it's about the ensemble. It's not really about who can be the biggest star, who can have the biggest star making performance. And so knowing that this was about an ensemble who comes together, like, Keith's character, Katherine's character, he's the lead, but he's surrounded by really dynamic people. And every one of those ensemble members is so specific, and you sort of like get their inner life as soon as you meet them. And I would say that's the way our community is too, that it's just filled with people who you're like, oh, I want to see a whole play about them.
Yeah, right.
Or see a whole movie about them.
Right. It's a great film when any side character that shows up, you're like, I wouldn't mind seeing a film about that person for 2 hours or an hour and a half. Exactly. Yeah. Keith, how about in terms of working with everybody and the Chicago-ness of the ensemble?
I mean, everybody's sort of said it already. I would say that is it was a joy to work with my friends, and the trust that we had, and again, it's all unspoken, and you just do the work that's in front of you again, and everybody that was in the cast was an accomplished, experienced actor. So it's a joy to work with people like that who aren't, they say their line and then they leave and don't do year over the shoulder to them or whatever. So that's the community in Chicago, and it starts on the stage. But I mean, good acting, I guess, is everywhere. But in Chicago, it is definitely an ensemble-based, where everybody kind of helps each other out. Strangely enough.
Yeah. To wrap up, I'd love to hear from each of you. What do you hope resonates with audiences? What do you hope they take away from the film? At the end of the day, Katherine, we can start with you. What do you hope resonates with audiences?
What do you think, kid?
I'm thinking.
All right.
I think that, well, first of all, I hope everyone thought it was a good movie. And then also I hope that, I think with all, our, movies or TV shows or plays especially, I feel like you come out of it, seeing another perspective or being able to put some of your emotion into the piece that you've just witnessed, and I hope that they're able to do that with Ghostlight, because it is a pretty emotionally intense, movie, and I hope that it provides support to some people in a way. But yeah.
Tara, terrific. Yep.
Yeah, very good. So sort of just to add on to what Katherine is saying, I think the beauty of the film for me and what I hope others take away from it is, especially in this world that we're in right now, that is so filled with loss and grief and challenging things, that there is a reminder that the power of a great story and the power of theater and the power of film is that it provides us with a place to bring those emotions that maybe we can't express in our everyday lives, and gives us a place to put it,
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Keith, how about you?
I would echo those sentiments. I mean, it's difficult for me to speak about what resonates with people when they watch a play or hear a piece of music or watch a film. It's all individual. It's going to affect you in your own personal way. I just hope that this film, because I feel it is such a good script and told truthfully and dynamically, cinematically, I think, has the lasting impact is the truth of the story and the narrative, and whether it's something that you're familiar with in your life or you can identify with somebody on the screen. That's the best I think we can do. It's what I take away when I watch film or a theater piece, whatever elevates the human struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex?
This is pressure. What if you can't top that?
I know. I'm not
Should
going to
we just say ditto?
I was just going to say that because this is a room of people who also are creators. Like, my hope is that I hope that you walk away with these sort of feelings. But my hope is that when and if the film opens and people do watch it and do like it, that distributors, producers, investors are paying attention, because there are other scripts like this out there and other actors waiting to be given these sort of roles. And I just don't think that the system as it stands, where there's a certain requirement for value, I just think it's an inhumane system. And it's just not what audiences actually care about. Yeah. And so I hope that if Ghostlight is successful, that investors, distributors, studios will look at this theater full of actors, full of people who have spent their lives at this craft, and see potential instead of number 17 on the call sheet. Right. That's my hope. So
Yeah.
Now top that.
Can't.
Exactly. Top that.
Oh my God. No, that's it. No, I would just say, I hope, I hope that people who aren't actors and who aren't professionals think, I can still live a creative life and not make it my profession. I think it's really sad that creativity has been relegated to, you're either creative and that's your job, or you're not. Right. And I know that I've had the best times of my life in community theater with people who have day jobs. And so I hope that people like my dad watch it and think I should, if I want to go take an improv class, I should take an improv class, even if I'm in my 60s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hear, hear.
Well, one theme of the film is that how art is so restorative and heals us, and this film absolutely does that in so many ways. Thank you all for being here so much.
Thank you,
ladies and gentlemen, Kelly O'Sullivan, Alex Thompson, Keith Kupferer, Tara Kupferer, and Katherine Mallen Kupferer. The film is Ghostlight. Thank you.